The rain battered the rusted fire escape outside Eli's Brooklyn apartment. Each drop a reminder of the storm that had torn his family apart 7 years ago. At 17, he'd stood trembling in his childhood home, his father's voice booming. "A man is a man. Eli, you're no son of mine." Those words had carved a wound deeper than any blade. And when his father walked out that night, suitcase in hand, Eli's world collapsed. Now, at 24, Eli sat cross-legged on his worn couch, staring at a cracked photo frame. It held a picture of him and his dad from better days fishing at Lake George, both smiling, unaware of the fracture to come. His fingers traced the glass, the ache of rejection still raw. But tonight wasn't about the past. Tonight, Eli had a plan, one that could rewrite not just his story but thousands of others. He glanced at his phone, the screen glowing with a text from Jamie. "You sure about this? It's going to be a circus." Jamie, his boyfriend of 2 years, was the calm to Eli's chaos, the steady hand that kept him grounded. Eli typed back, "I'm sure. We're doing this." His heart raced not from fear, but from the fire of purpose. Tomorrow, they'd step into a courtroom, face a nation, and challenge a law that had silenced so many like them. Eli's journey to this moment hadn't been easy. Growing up in upstate New York, he'd been the quiet kid who loved books and sketching, always a little different, but never sure why. By 15, he knew. He liked boys, not girls, and the realization hit like a freight train in a small town where different was a dirty word. His mother, Sarah, had tried to bridge the gap when he came out, her soft voice pleading with his father, Tom, to understand. But Tom, a former Marine with a rigid view of masculinity, saw Eli's truth as a betrayal. "Fix yourself, or you're out," he'd said. Eli couldn't fix what wasn't broken, so Tom left instead, leaving Sarah to raise Eli alone. Sarah was his rock, but the town wasn't kind. Whispers followed Eli at school, slurs scrawled on his locker. Faggot hissed in hallways. He learned to keep his head down, to hide who he was. College in New York City changed that. At NYU, Eli found a community that didn't just tolerate him, but celebrated him. He met Jamie at a campus Queer Alliance event, a blonde-haired law student with a quick laugh and a passion for justice. Jamie saw the world in possibilities, not limitations, and he saw Eli for who he was, a fighter, even when Eli doubted it himself. Their relationship wasn't perfect. Eli's insecurities, born from years of rejection, sometimes made him push Jamie away. "Why do you stay?" he'd asked once, voice breaking. Jamie's answer was simple, "Because you're worth it, Eli. And I'm not going anywhere." Those words became Eli's anchor, especially now, as they prepared to challenge New York's outdated anti-discrimination laws. The state's protections for LGBTQ+ individuals were patchy, leaving gaps that allowed employers, landlords, and even hospitals to discriminate. Eli and Jamie had seen the fallout: friends fired, couples evicted, lives upended. They joined a grassroots movement to push for a comprehensive equality bill, and tomorrow's hearing was their shot to make history. Eli stood, pacing the small apartment. His sketchbook lay open on the coffee table, filled with drawings of protests, pride flags, and Jamie's face, always Jamie's face. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. This was for every kid like him, rejected by family, told they were less. He thought of his dad, wondered if Tom ever regretted leaving. Did he watch the news? Would he see his son tomorrow, standing tall on live TV? The doorbell buzzed, snapping Eli from his thoughts. Jamie stood in the hallway, soaked from the rain, his blue eyes bright despite the late hour. "Couldn't sleep," he said, stepping inside. "Figured you couldn't either." Eli pulled him into a hug, the warmth of Jamie's arms easing the knot in his chest. "We're really doing this, aren't we?" Eli whispered. Jamie nodded, his voice steady. "We are. And we're not alone." They sat together, planning their testimony, their words a mix of legal precision and raw emotion. The bill they supported would close loopholes, protect against discrimination in every corner of life. But the opposition was fierce politicians, religious groups, even some of Eli's old neighbors from upstate, who saw it as an attack on traditional values. Eli knew the real fight wasn't just in the courtroom. It was in hearts like his father's, hardened by fear of change. As dawn broke, Eli felt the weight of the day ahead. He wasn't just a son anymore, or a boyfriend, or an artist. He was a voice, one that could echo far beyond Brooklyn. The courtroom in Albany was a sea of faces, supporters in rainbow pins, opponents clutching Bibles, and reporters with cameras ready to capture every word. Eli's hands shook as he adjusted his tie, the weight of the moment pressing against his chest. Jamie sat beside him, his calm presence a lifeline in the chaos. "You've got this," Jamie whispered, squeezing Eli's hand under the table. "Just tell your truth." Eli nodded, but his mind flashed back to the last time he'd faced a crowd like this, his high school graduation, when his father's absence left an empty seat that burned worse than any insult. Now, he was here to speak for thousands, to demand a law that said no one could be fired, evicted, or denied care for who they loved. The stakes were dizzying. The hearing began, and the room crackled with tension. A conservative senator, Richard Holt, led the opposition, his voice dripping with disdain as he argued the bill undermined family values. Eli's stomach churned. Holt's words echoed his father's rigid, unyielding, blind to the human cost. When it was Eli's turn to speak, he stood, his knees unsteady but his resolve ironclad. "My name is Eli Carter," he began, his voice louder than he expected. "7 years ago, my father left because I'm gay. He said, 'A man is a man,' and walked out. I lost my family because of who I am, and I'm not alone." The room went silent, every eye on him. "This bill isn't about politics. It's about people like me, who've been told we don't belong. We're not asking for special rights. We're asking for equal ones." He spoke of friends who'd lost jobs, of a trans woman denied hospital care, of kids kicked out of homes. His voice broke when he mentioned his mother, Sarah, who'd driven up to be there, sitting in the back with tears in her eyes. "This is for her, too," he said. "For every parent who loves their kid, no matter what." The room erupted, some clapping, others jeering. Holt leaned forward, his face a mask of contempt. "Mr. Carter, you're asking us to rewrite society for a minority. Why should we prioritize your feelings over tradition?" Eli's jaw tightened. He thought of Jamie, of their late-night talks about a future where they could live without fear. "It's not about feelings," he said. "It's about fairness. Tradition doesn't justify discrimination." Jamie's testimony followed, his legal expertise shining as he dismantled Holt's arguments with data and case studies. But it was his final words that hit hardest. "Love isn't a crime. Denying it is." The hearing stretched into hours, each side trading blows. Outside, protesters clashed, rainbow flags waving against signs quoting scripture. Eli felt the weight of every story he'd heard in the movement: a lesbian couple evicted, a gay teen bullied into despair. He and Jamie weren't just fighting for a law. They were fighting for a world where no one had to hide. That night, back at their hotel, Eli couldn't sleep. The news was already spinning their testimony, some outlets praising their courage, others calling them agitators. Jamie scrolled through X, reading posts from supporters and trolls alike. "Look at this," he said, showing Eli a post. "Eli Carter's story is why we need this bill. Equality now." Eli smiled, but his thoughts drifted to his father. Did Tom see this? Did he care? Sarah had called earlier, her voice proud but heavy. "I wish he could see you now," she'd said. Eli wished it too, but he wasn't holding his breath. The next day, they returned to the courtroom. A surprise witness took the stand, a retired judge, Margaret Ellis, who'd seen discrimination cases pile up over decades. Her voice was steady, authoritative. "I've watched laws lag behind humanity," she said. "This bill is long overdue." Her testimony shifted the room's energy, even softening some opponents' faces. Eli felt a spark of hope, but Holt wasn't done. He introduced a last-minute amendment to weaken the bill, stripping protections for public accommodations. Jamie leaned over, whispering, "He's trying to gut it." Eli's heart sank. If the amendment passed, the bill would be a hollow victory. They had one day to rally support before the vote. Eli and Jamie hit the ground running, meeting with activists, calling senators, and posting on X to mobilize followers. Eli's sketches of the movement went viral, each one captioned with a call to action. By nightfall, their hashtag was trending, and supporters flooded Albany, chanting outside the Capitol. But as Eli stood among them, a familiar face caught his eye in the crowd. His breath hitched. It couldn't be. The man in the crowd was older, his hair grayer, but the set of his jaw was unmistakable. It was Tom, Eli's father, standing at the edge of the protest, his expression unreadable. Eli froze, the chants around him fading to a dull roar. 7 years. And now here he was, just as Eli was fighting the biggest battle of his life. Jamie noticed Eli's stillness and followed his gaze. "Is that?" he asked, voice low. Eli nodded, unable to speak. Part of him wanted to run to confront Tom, to demand answers. Another part wanted to hide, to shield the fragile hope he'd built. Jamie's hand on his shoulder steadied him. "You don't have to do anything," Jamie said. "Focus on tomorrow." But Eli couldn't focus. That night, he lay awake, memories crashing over him like waves. Tom teaching him to ride a bike, his rough hands steadying the handlebars. Tom cheering at his Little League games, proud of every swing. And then Tom's face, twisted with disgust, the night he left. "You're not my son." The words echoed, sharper now with his father so close. Morning came too soon. The final day of the hearing was a pressure cooker. Eli and Jamie met with their allies, strategizing to block Holt's amendment. They needed 3 more senators to vote no, and time was running out. Eli poured his energy into calls, his voice hoarse by noon. Jamie worked the legal angle, drafting arguments to sway undecideds. In the courtroom, the air was electric. Supporters packed the gallery, their rainbow pins glinting under fluorescent lights. Holt presented his amendment, his voice smooth as he framed it as a compromise. Eli clenched his fists. Compromise meant leaving people like him vulnerable in restaurants, hotels, stores, anywhere public was a loophole for bigotry. When it was Eli's turn to speak again, he stood, his eyes scanning the room. He didn't see Tom, but the memory of him fueled every word. "This amendment isn't compromise," he said. "It's abandonment. It says some of us deserve less safety, less dignity, less humanity. I've spent my life being told I'm less. I'm done accepting it." The gallery erupted, cheers drowning out Holt's glower. Jamie followed, his testimony razor-sharp, citing legal precedents and economic data showing the cost of discrimination. But the real blow came from an unexpected ally, Senator Maria Torres, a moderate who'd been silent until now. "I've listened to these stories," she said, her voice steady. "I've heard from my constituents' mothers, fathers, kids. This bill isn't about politics. It's about doing what's right." Her words shifted the room. Eli felt a surge of hope, but doubt lingered. Would it be enough? The vote was hours away, and rumors swirled that Holt had swayed key senators with backroom deals. Eli and Jamie spent the afternoon lobbying, their energy fueled by coffee and desperation. Supporters rallied outside, their signs bold, "Equality for all." Eli's sketches, shared on X, had spread further, inspiring posts from across the country. As the vote neared, Eli's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I'm here. Can we talk?" His heart stopped. It was Tom. Eli's first instinct was to delete it, to protect himself from more pain. But something curiosity, maybe hope, stopped him. He showed Jamie, who frowned but nodded. "Only if you're ready," Jamie said. Eli wasn't ready, but he texted back, "After the vote. Courthouse steps." He didn't know what he'd say, or if he'd regret it, but he couldn't run from this. Not now. The vote was agonizing. Each senator's name was called, their yeah or nay on the amendment echoing like a gavel. When the final tally came, Holt's amendment defeated by 2 votes. Eli's breath caught. Cheers erupted, but the bill itself still needed approval. The real fight was next. Outside, the crowd was a sea of color, supporters and opponents shouting over each other. Eli scanned for Tom, his heart pounding. He spotted him near a lamppost, hands in his pockets, looking smaller than Eli remembered. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the world shrank to just them. "Eli," Tom said, his voice rough. "I saw you on TV." Eli swallowed, his throat tight. "Why are you here?" Tom's jaw worked, as if the words were stuck. I needed to see you." Eli wanted to scream, to ask why now, after years of silence. But the vote wasn't over, and he couldn't lose focus. "We'll talk," he said. "But not yet." Tom nodded, something like shame flickering in his eyes. Eli turned away, Jamie's hand finding his, grounding him as they faced the final hurdle. The final vote on the equality bill was set for late afternoon, and the courthouse buzzed with anticipation. Eli's encounter with Tom lingered like a bruise, but he pushed it aside, focusing on the task at hand. Jamie was a whirlwind, coordinating with activists and briefing reporters, his calm exterior masking the stakes they both felt. Eli stood at the edge of the courtroom, watching senators file in. His mother, Sarah, caught his eye from the gallery, her smile a quiet strength. She'd driven hours to be here, her faith in him unwavering despite the years of struggle. Eli wished he could tell her how much it meant, but words felt too small. The debate was brutal. Holt rallied his allies, painting the bill as a threat to religious freedom. Eli's stomach twisted as he listened, each word a reminder of the rejection he'd faced. But the tide was shifting. Senator Torres and others spoke passionately, citing stories like Eli's, their voices carrying the weight of countless lives. When the vote began, Eli held Jamie's hand, his pulse racing. The chamber was silent except for the clerk's voice calling names. Yeah? Nay. Each vote felt like a step toward freedom or a door slamming shut. Eli thought of the kids still hiding, the couples still fighting, the families still broken. This was for them. The final count came, 34 yeas, 28 nays. The bill passed. The gallery exploded cheers, sobs, hugs. Eli turned to Jamie, tears streaming down his face. "We did it," he whispered. Jamie pulled him close, their embrace a shield against the chaos. Sarah rushed to them, her arms wrapping around both, her voice choked with pride. "My boys," she said. But the victory wasn't complete. The bill needed the governor's signature, and rumors swirled that she was hesitant, wary of political backlash. Eli and Jamie knew their work wasn't done. They stepped outside to address the crowd, cameras flashing as they spoke. "This is a start," Eli said, his voice steady despite the lump in his throat. "But we keep fighting until everyone is safe. Everywhere." The crowd roared, but Eli's eyes found Tom, still lingering at the edge. Their earlier exchange hung heavy, unresolved. Eli took a breath and walked toward him, Jamie's nod giving him courage. "Dad," Eli said, the word foreign after so long. "You came." Tom's face was lined, weary. "I saw you on the news. Heard what you said." He faltered, looking away. "I didn't know it was like this. What you've been through." Eli's chest ached. He wanted to believe Tom's words, but trust was a fragile thing. "You left," he said, voice low. "You said I wasn't your son." Tom flinched, his hands clenching. "I was wrong, Eli. I didn't understand. I still don't. Not fully. But I'm trying." Eli didn't know what to say. Part of him wanted to forgive, to bridge the gap. Another part remembered the years of silence, the pain of abandonment. "Why now?" he asked. "Your mother sent me your sketches," Tom said. "The ones you've been posting. They made me see you. Really see you." Eli's breath caught. His sketches raw, honest, filled with the pain and hope of his journey had reached his father. He didn't know if it was enough, but it was something. "I need time," Eli said finally. "This doesn't fix everything." Tom nodded, his eyes glistening. "I know. But I'm here." Eli turned back to Jamie, who was waiting, his presence a reminder of the life Eli had built despite the past. The cameras were still rolling, capturing their victory, their love, their fight. Eli took Jamie's hand, and together they faced the crowd, ready for whatever came next. That night, X lit up with their story. Posts called Eli a hero, Jamie a strategist, their love a symbol of resilience. But for Eli, it was simpler. It was about being seen, not just by the world, but by the man who'd once turned away. The weeks after the vote were a whirlwind. Eli and Jamie returned to Brooklyn, their small apartment now a hub for activists planning the next steps. The governor had until the end of the month to sign the bill, and pressure was mounting. Protests continued outside her office, and Eli's sketches kept the movement alive online, each one a call to action. But Tom's reappearance haunted Eli. They'd exchanged numbers, and Tom texted occasionally short, awkward messages like, "Saw your interview. You did good." Eli didn't always reply. Forgiveness wasn't a switch he could flip. Still, Sarah encouraged him to keep the door open. "He's trying, Eli," she said over coffee one morning. "He's not the man he was." Eli wasn't sure he believed that. He threw himself into work, sketching late into the night, his art a way to process the chaos. Jamie noticed the strain, pulling him away from the desk one evening. "You're carrying too much," Jamie said, his hands gentle on Eli's shoulders. "Talk to me." Eli sighed, the weight of his father's return spilling out. "I want to believe he's changed, but what if he hasn't? What if I let him in and he hurts me again?" Jamie listened, his eyes steady. "You don't have to decide now. You've got me, your mom, this whole movement. You're not alone." Eli nodded, leaning into Jamie's embrace. Their love was his anchor, a reminder that he'd built a family despite the one he'd lost. But the question of Tom lingered, a shadow he couldn't shake. The governor's decision loomed, and rumors of a veto grew louder. Eli and Jamie organized a final pusher rally in Manhattan, bigger than anything they'd done. Thousands gathered, their signs bold, their voices united. Eli took the stage, his heart pounding as he faced the sea of faces. "This bill isn't just a law," he said. "It's a promisito every person who's been told they don't belong. We're here, and we're not going away." The crowd roared, and Jamie joined him, their hands clasped. The moment was electric, broadcast live on every major network. Eli's eyes scanned the crowd, half expecting to see Tom again. He didn't, but the absence didn't sting as much this time. He was fighting for more than his father's approval now. Backstage, a reporter pulled them aside. "Eli, your story's gone viral," she said. "People are calling you the face of this movement. How does it feel?" Eli hesitated. "It's not about me," he said. "It's about all of you's very person who's been hurt, who's still fighting. This is their victory too." The reporter nodded, then asked, "And your father? Any word from him?" Eli froze, the question cutting deep. Jamie stepped in, his voice calm. "This isn't about one family. It's about every family who needs this law." That night, the governor announced she'd signed the bill. The news broke on X, and their apartment erupted in cheers as friends gathered to celebrate. Eli felt a weight lift, but the victory was bittersweet. He checked his phone, half hoping for a message from Tom. There was none. The next morning, Eli woke to a text, "I'm proud of you, Dad." His hands shook as he read it. Proud. The word felt foreign, almost wrong. He showed Jamie, who raised an eyebrow. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know," Eli admitted. "But I think I need to see him." They arranged to meet Tom at a diner in Albany, neutral ground. Eli's stomach churned as they drove, Jamie's hand on his knee the only thing keeping him steady. When they arrived, Tom was already there, sitting in a corner booth, his hands wrapped around a coffee mug. "Eli," Tom said, standing as they approached. "Jamie." Eli nodded, sliding into the booth. The air was thick, every word heavy. "Why now?" Eli asked again, his voice quieter this time. Tom looked down, his fingers tracing the mug's handle. "I was wrong," he said. "I thought I knew what a man was. I didn't. Watching you, you're stronger than I ever was." Eli's throat tightened. He wanted to believe it, but the years of pain didn't vanish with an apology. "I needed you then," he said. "Not now." Tom's eyes glistened. "I know. And I'll live with that. But I'm here, if you'll let me." Eli didn't answer. He wasn't ready to forgive, but he didn't close the door either. The diner meeting left Eli raw, his emotions a tangle of hope and hurt. He and Jamie drove back to Brooklyn in silence, the hum of the car a backdrop to Eli's racing thoughts. Tom's words, "I'm proud of you," echoed, but they didn't erase the past. Eli stared out the window, the city lights blurring into streaks of color. "You okay?" Jamie asked, his voice soft. Eli shrugged. "I don't know what I expected. An apology doesn't fix 7 years." Jamie nodded, his hand finding Eli's. "It doesn't. But it's a start. You get to decide what comes next." Back home, Eli threw himself into his art, sketching the diner's scene, Tom's weathered face, the coffee mug, the weight of unspoken words. His drawings were more than art now. They were a bridge to the world, a way to process his pain and share his hope. X was flooded with reactions to the bill's signing, and Eli's latest sketch, a rainbow flag rising over Albany, went viral. Captioned, "For every kid who needs to be seen." The movement didn't stop with the bill. Eli and Jamie worked with activists to ensure its implementation, training businesses and schools on the new protections. Eli spoke at community centers, sharing his story to crowds of teens who reminded him of his younger self, scared, but searching for hope. Each talk chipped away at his own wounds, replacing shame with purpose. Sarah visited often, her pride in Eli a quiet constant. Over dinner one night, she brought up Tom. "He's been going to a support group," she said, "for parents of queer kids. He's trying to understand." Eli's fork paused midair. "A support group?" Sarah nodded. "He's not perfect, Eli, but he's learning." Eli didn't know how to feel. Part of him wanted to believe Tom could change, but trust was hard-won. He changed the subject, focusing on the next rally instead. Weeks turned into months, and the bill's impact began to show. Stories poured in. A gay couple welcomed at a hotel that once turned them away. A trans student protected at school. Eli and Jamie celebrated each victory, but the work was exhausting. Late nights planning, early mornings strategizing. Eli felt the strain, and so did Jamie. One evening, after a long day, they argued. It was small at first, Jamie forgetting a meeting, Eli snapping about it, but it escalated. "You're shutting me out," Jamie said, his voice sharp. "You're so focused on your dad. You're not here." Eli flinched. "I'm trying, Jamie. This isn't easy." "I know it's not," Jamie said, softer now. "But I need you to." The fight ended with apologies, but it left Eli shaken. He realized how much he'd leaned on Jamie, how much Jamie carried for them both. That night, he sketched Jamie sleeping, the lines of his face soft in the lamplight. He captioned it, "My home." The next day, Eli got a call from a producer at a national news network. They wanted him and Jamie on live TV to discuss the bill's impact in their story. "People need to hear from you," the producer said. "Your fight's inspiring millions." Eli hesitated. Going on live TV meant exposing himself again, risking more hate, more trolls. But Jamie was all in. "This is our chance," he said. "Not just for us, but for everyone watching." They prepared for days, refining their message. Eli practiced his words, wanting to honor the movement without making it about himself. Jamie focused on the legal wins, but also their love-a partnership that had weathered rejection and risen stronger. The night before the broadcast, Eli's phone buzzed. It was Tom again. "Can I watch you tomorrow?" At Sarah's. Eli stared at the message, his heart torn. He typed back, "Yeah. Okay." The studio was a maze of lights and cameras, the air thick with anticipation. Eli's nerves buzzed, but Jamie's steady presence kept him grounded. As they waited backstage, Eli thought of his younger self, the boy who thought he'd never be enough. He was enough now. The host introduced them, and the cameras rolled. Eli's voice was steady as he spoke, his words carrying the weight of years. "This bill isn't the end," he said. "It's a beginning. A promise that no one has to hide who they are." Somewhere, he knew Tom was watching. The live broadcast was a blur of bright lights and rapid questions. Eli sat beside Jamie on the studio couch, their hands brushing for courage. The host, a sharp woman named Lena Carter, leaned forward, her eyes warm but probing. "Eli, your stories resonated with so many," she said. "What's next for you in this movement?" Eli took a breath. The camera's red light like a spotlight on his soul. "We keep going," he said. "This law is a step, but equality isn't just a signature on paper. It's making sure every kid like me knows they're enough, no matter who they love." Jamie chimed in, his voice clear. "We're pushing for federal protections now. No one should lose their job, their home, or their dignity because of who they are." The audience clapped, and Lena smiled. "And your relationship?" she asked. "You two have become a symbol of hope. How do you balance love and activism?" Eli glanced at Jamie, his heart swelling. "He's my strength," he said simply. "We fight together, and we love together. That's what keeps us going." The broadcast ended with a standing ovation, and Eli felt lighter than he had in years. Backstage, their phones buzzed with messages, friends, activists, even strangers moved by their words. One text stood out, "Tom, you were incredible. Both of you." Eli didn't reply, but the message stayed with him as they drove to Sarah's house that evening. She'd invited them for dinner, and Tom would be there. Eli's stomach knotted at the thought, but Jamie's quiet support gave him courage. Sarah's small house smelled of her famous lasagna, the table set with care. Tom sat across from Eli, his presence both familiar and foreign. The meal was quiet at first, the clink of forks loud in the tension. Sarah broke the silence, her voice gentle. "I'm so proud of you both," she said. "What you did today, it's changing lives." Tom cleared his throat, his eyes on his plate. "She's right," he said. "I watched you, Eli. You're doing something I never could." Eli's fork stilled. "What's that?" "Making the world better," Tom said, his voice rough. "I was wrong, son. About a lot. I'm sorry." The word son hit Eli like a wave. He wanted to believe it, but the hurt ran deep. "Sorry doesn't erase it," he said, his voice steady. "You left me. You left Mom." Tom nodded, his face etched with regret. "I know. I can't undo it. But I want to be here now, if you'll let me." Sarah reached for Eli's hand, her eyes pleading for him to listen. Jamie stayed quiet, his presence a reminder that Eli wasn't alone. "I don't know if I can trust you," Eli said finally, "but I'm willing to try." Tom's eyes glistened, and for the first time, Eli saw not the man who left, but a father grappling with his mistakes. Dinner continued, the conversation lighter, stories of the movement mingling with memories of better days. Back in Brooklyn, Eli and Jamie debriefed, their small apartment a sanctuary. "You did good tonight," Jamie said, pulling Eli close. "With your dad. With everything." Eli leaned into him, the weight of the day easing. "I couldn't do this without you." The next weeks were a blur of interviews, rallies, and planning. The bill's success had sparked a national conversation, and Eli's story was at its heart. His sketches kept trending, each one a snapshot of hope. But the real work was in the quiet moments, helping a teen navigate coming out, advising a business on inclusive policies, building a future with Jamie. One morning, Eli got a package from Tom, a worn journal, filled with letters he'd written but never sent. Pages of apologies, regrets, and hopes. Eli read them alone, tears falling as he saw his father's struggle to change. It wasn't enough to heal everything, but it was a start. He called Tom that evening, his voice steady. "Let's keep talking," he said. Tom's voice cracked with relief. "I'd like that." A year later, Eli stood on a stage in Washington, D.C., the Capitol looming behind him. The crowd stretched across the National Mall, thousands strong, Their rainbow flags a sea of color under the summer sun. He and Jamie had been invited to speak at a national equality rally. Their story now a beacon for a growing movement. The bill they'd fought for in New York had inspired similar laws in other states. And now, a federal version was gaining traction. Eli gripped the podium, his sketchbook tucked under his arm. Jamie stood beside him, their hands brushing, a quiet reminder of their shared strength. A year ago, I stood in a courtroom. Eli began, his voice carrying over the crowd. I told my story, a story of rejection, of pain, but also of hope. Because of you, we're changing the world. The crowd roared, and Eli's eyes found Sarah in the front row, her smile radiant. Beside her stood Tom, his face weathered but proud. They'd been talking regularly now, rebuilding slowly. It wasn't perfect. Forgiveness was a process, not a destination, but it was enough for now. Jamie spoke next, his legal mind outlining the path to federal protections. This isn't just about laws, he said. It's about love, love that fights, love that endures, love that wins. The crowd cheered, and Eli felt a lump in his throat. He thought of the boy he'd been, hiding in his room, afraid of who he was. That boy had become a man who'd changed a law, who'd found love, who'd faced his past and built a future. After the rally, Eli and Jamie walked through the mall, the crowd's energy still buzzing around them. Tom approached, hesitant but steady. You were amazing up there, he said. Both of you. Eli nodded, the old ache softer now. Thanks, Dad. Tom smiled, a real smile, and for the first time in years, Eli saw the man who'd once cheered at his games. They talked for a while, not about the past, but about the future, small steps, like dinners together, maybe a fishing trip. That night, Eli posted a new sketch on X, him and Jamie on the stage, hands clasped, with Tom and Sarah in the crowd, the Capitol glowing behind them. The caption read, "Family isn't just given. It's chosen, fought for, built." The post went viral, shared by thousands, each share a ripple of hope. Eli and Jamie read the comments together, curled up on their couch. We did this, Jamie said, his voice soft. Eli kissed him, the weight of the past lighter than ever. Yeah, he said. We did. Their fight wasn't over. There were still states without protections, still hearts to change, still kids who needed to know they were enough. But Eli and Jamie faced it together, their love a fire that burned brighter than any hate. And somewhere, in a small house upstate, a father was learning to love his son again, not for who he thought he should be, but for who he was.